You're listening to The Voice, 17104.com.
Welcome, my brothers and sisters, to the Richard James Show on 17104, The Voice. Greetings, my friends, and salutations. Again, we will welcome you to the Richard James Show. We're in mourning, but then we're celebrating at the same time. I am being joined today in our broadcast by Professor Maria James Chow, my daughter. Welcome, Maria.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Now, we are both lifting up a family member, first cousins. We're the children, she and I, of two brothers, and she passed from this earth. Well known, well loved, well liked. James Hopkins Branch. She passed a few weeks ago. She was noted. We do have a picture of her that we like to display. We know that you are familiar with her. She was an assistant pastor uh, in Chester, Pennsylvania, to Commodore Harris at one time. She lived in Harrisburg for many years. She pastored in Lebanon. She's pastored in Harrisburg and Chester, and she's a wonderful woman. We're gonna lift her up, but she's worthy to be lifted up. And we're gonna start off our program. Maria is an accomplished author, a poet, a professor, an author, and we're going to get into some of those things in addition to our praise and our sharing of the love that we have for Janette. That's what we call her, Janette, and actually I call her Pete because I knew her for years and years and years when she came into this world. But like all of us at one day, this is another picture of her. But she, like all of us, one day someone will tap us on the shoulder and we will have to leave this earth. But Maria who has written many published poems. As a matter of fact, a little later in the show, we're going to talk about a new idea that she's put together that's absolutely marvelous and magnificent. But let me turn it over to Maria now, and she has a wonderful poem that she has written for our departed one.
Okay.
Maria.
So she was my cousin. I called her Aunt Pete, and she would say, "Baby, I'm your cousin." But that's such a term of respect that she was like an aunt to me. So this is in honor of her. Ain't nobody's fault but mine. Nobody's fault but mine. If I died and my soul be lost, ain't no fault but mine. I had a cousin who could pray.
Yeah.
I had a cousin who could pray. If I died and my soul be lost, ain't nobody's fault but mine. Ooh, I had a cousin who could pray. And she prayed and she prayed and she prayed and she prayed with a booming voice that resounded in your soul, hung in the air like the curious cherubs that filled the room to listen, to say, "Is that Mother?" No, Pete singing again. Overseer Janette Branch Janette-Hopkins branch could not be told to quiet down, could not be told to sit down, would not be told to stay in her place. She would that she could serve God from behind a man because she heard God for herself. My cousin was a church builder, and she could walk up to any pulpit knowing that a man's opinion about what a woman could do was just a man's opinion about what a woman could do. She heard God for herself. And I remember being a little girl and hearing that earth-shaking bass vibrate up from earth to the heavens. Excuse me. That go down Moses, that free at last, that sun up to sundown voice that my cousin had, and I marveled. I said, Mommy, I want to sing like Black ladies do in church. I heard God in her voice, and I loved her fiercely.
Okay, it's okay, hon. Take your time. Take your time.
I heard God in her and loved her fiercely. The Apostle Janette Branch freed me to be me. And she prayed, and she prayed, and she prayed. So if she were here, she might say, no more weeping and wailing. I'm going home to live with God. Thank
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For the Lord knows all about it. For the Lord will understand why. For the Lord knows all about it. He'll understand and say, well done. You know, Ezekiel saw that wheel way up in the middle of the air. Ezekiel saw that wheel up in the middle of the air. Why do we sing? Why do we read poetry? That was Janette. I have never been in a gathering when people were lifting up and praising the Creator when Janette didn't lift up and praise songs. And I really appreciate Maria coming on. And she's dealing with some of her issues also. But she, again, is committed to helping others. You see, Jeanette lived a life that set an examples for others to follow. I was 7 years old when Jeanette was born and can remember when she came into this world. And she left at the tender age of 70, 73. But Jeanette uh, had a troubled youth, and she grew out of that troubled youth and set an example. She went to college while taking care of 3 children and really not having a whole lot of money to spend on college. And she got her education, and she became a minister, a disciple, an apostle, one who led other people in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I shall feel no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, it comfort me. He prepares the table in the presence of my enemies. That was Janette Branch. And Maria is accomplished in terms of her own journey. She's published several books. She's been teaching for a couple of decades, and she's raising also two wonderful children, and she has a husband. I want to appreciate you coming on, Maria, because I know sometimes you don't feel so well. But share with us your journey. Share with us where you're going with life, and maybe some of the things you may have picked up from Jeanette Blanche in terms of your journey and where you want to go and how you want to get there. I understand you also have authored a recent publication, or you're going to be doing some plays or some things. Just give us a little bit of your journey. We appreciate it.
Okay. Well, so now you saw exhibit exhibit A. I do have a chronic lung and airway disease. And so the publication that I put out is called Count Each Breath. It is a poetry collection, and it is my reflecting on being a Black woman with a chronic illness that faces a global pandemic in which the majority of the victims were Black women. There was more of the victims were Black and Latinos, and then all of that happening, and then we have a racial uprising. It felt like a target on my back, and so so I explore the shutdown and the feeling that it was supposed to be 14 days and what life was like, going to the store and seeing shelves empty for the first time, and then going into what it was like to see George Floyd murdered, and I also touch on ancestry, and all of this is part of Count Each Breath. And I took a lot of time crafting these poems. What's interesting is ancestry really is something I love to research. And Cousin Pete, as we called her, she also loved to research. So we would connect on, excuse me, on ancestry.com. And I learned a lot from her, some things that those documents can't show you. Okay. Final words that your grandfather said to somebody, like different stories, things that happened down in Thomasville, Georgia, where the family's from. And so she was a griot, a storyteller, somebody that I was able to learn a lot about our own heritage. So I really appreciate that. When I was active in ministry back, gosh, what year was that? I was in my 20s. She was a great role model to me because she was in ministry over on 17th Street in Harrisburg, the Church of God. So a lot of the listeners probably remember that beautiful booming voice that I spoke of. So she was really a blessing, and I just am happy for the times that we could spend time together as a family, and she's someone to admire. There's one story I recall, actually, when your brother, Dad, Uncle Curtis, passed away, and the service for him was held at his church, Grandma's church, down in Philadelphia. And the church is very strict, very fundamentalist, very traditional. And so they don't let women speak in the pulpit. And I just remember the feeling of pride that I had when cousin Pete and cousin Edna came walking in with their collar, with their that showed that they were ministers, and they walked in not ashamed at all. They walked in with pride. They didn't like start, they didn't just say anything negative or anything like that, but they walked in knowing that God had put them in the position they were in, and no man could tell them not to, so that was something that really stood out to me.
What about the woman that spoke from the pulpit and read a poem?
Yes, well, when I walked up to the pulpit church, um the men sitting there told me not to, told me you can't do this, you can't be behind the pulpit, you have to stand over there. I mean, it was a definite, the sexism was fierce that day. And it was offensive because my uncle would have loved to hear me read poetry. He's always invited me to read a poem to him or come on his radio show, Elder Curtis James, and read poetry. And I know that is a gift from God. So, as they said, you don't touch the pulpit as if I would sully it. I would somehow unsanctify it. Was pretty offensive.
I
But
didn't even. This is the first I've heard that happen. I know you spoke and you read poetry.
I they just didn't want me to touch the pulpit, so I had to like scoot over and
Really?
and yeah, yep,
That's sad. But
yeah.
not everybody's like that, and not everybody is quite that ignorant. It's good for you to clarify because I didn't know that happened, and I know that both Jeanette and her sister, the Reverend Dr. Edna, uh, is are both ministers of the gospel, and they preach. And that's one thing that I really have a problem with, and I'll be straightforward, is the sexism and the narrow-mindedness of some so-called fundamentalist Christians. And I'm going to remind folks of one thing in terms of Christianity. You must come to God in your own way. And you cannot put restrictions on people in terms of how they pray or what they call God. Some call him Yahweh. Some call him Allah. Some call him God. Some call him the Creator. And then some narrow-minded folks don't want women, and they're sexist, and they want to put barriers in the way of women preaching and sharing the things that the people want to hear and need to hear. But
And
go
more
ahead,
women,
Ron. Go ahead.
there are more women in the churches and doing the work of church building while they're praying hard for men that are in the street or working in other industries. They the women are there and ready to do the work, so let them do the work. And this goes to my Catholic friends, this goes to my holiness and Pentecostal friends. I think we are way past the time of holding back women who
Yes.
gift. Yeah, because who are you to stand in the way of someone who's called? Like,
Right.
what when you have to go, when you go home, is he going to know you? Or are you the false prophet that told his preacher, the one he has assigned, that they can't speak his word? That's a whoo. That's just all what I have to say.
Well, when we talk about Jeanette uh, Hopkins Branch, nobody stopped her from doing anything. She was a pastor, a tremendous speaker, a tremendous singer. She went ahead and got her education without anybody else's help, uh, and she projected the kind of image that we want all of our women and all of our people to project. And the other thing is that she had a heart of gold. I mean, she would lift up the downtrodden, those who were in prison, those who have actually committed uh, sins and that kind of thing. Instead of putting them down and tossing them aside, she lifted them up and she set an example. And in terms of her own life, and in terms of her children, I saw her daughter who had some issues and who was a wonderful young lady get her college degrees, and went ahead and is doing something with her life. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of, I got 3 daughters. They all have college degrees. They're professors, they're teachers, and they did it themselves. You did it themselves. And give us what is the name of your project? What you're doing now? That's coming out in September, is it?
It's called the American Griot Project. That is the project that I do, in which I use oral history to write choreo poems. So it blends oral history interviews with the art of poetry, and then we bring it to the stage. So we have done Reclaiming My Time. A lot of people in Harrisburg came out to see that in
Yes.
2018. And those were the stories of women's memories of the civil rights era. Okay. Now, this next project, see, the civil rights era isn't really over, right? So
Right.
when I did those interviews, I talked to ladies about the 40s, 50s, 60s, but it's not over. And now we find that we are fighting to break the bias of hair texture discrimination. So many people aren't aware. They just think of hair as a fashion statement. But the fact is that the texture that Black people's hair has been used as a tool for white supremacy, a tool to slam the door in our faces. And so I'm interviewing people now, women, teenagers, men now, about their hair story. And this play is going to be called Hair Story: Reclaiming Our Crown. Because
Love it.
because here's an example. If you go right now and you Google professional hair, you're going to get pictures of lovely white ladies with straight hair or hair or updos. If you Google unprofessional hair, you get pictures of dreads and afros and braids.
Wow.
Now, the algorithm needs a reformation, needs a revolution. The algorithm has picked up on the racism and the bias in our society.
Right.
And so now that algorithm in Google is saying, this is what they told me, that Black women's hair is unprofessional, the way it grows out of their head, that you have to change the way God made you to be accepted in this society. Well, I don't accept that. And so I am interviewing women about their stories. I am translating those stories into poetry and then tying them together to become a choreo poem. And the choreo poem, a play written in poetic form, will be on stage in May of next year at Gamut Theater in Harrisburg. So I am really excited about that. Stay tuned to my website, reclaimartistcollective.org, for audition information and ticket information and all of that. Or if people want to share their hair story with me, they can either find me on Facebook or they can message me. They can email me at poetryprof74@gmail.com. Because I'd love to hear your hair story.
Maria, let me just add this. Uh, some men have the same problem.
True.
They wear some men like wear dreadlocks, as you just mentioned. Where they sometimes their hair are tied behind the head, and people have a way of trying to be very narrow in terms of individuals and not only their lifestyle, but how they carry themselves, and they tend to try to suppress women in particular. And one thing I have to say, women have got to stop letting them do it and stop letting them get away with it. I mean, when you say Black Lives Matter, they do matter. Women's lives matter too. Occasionally, and particularly women of color, and particularly African women. African women, I would say, have more problems than other women of color. Now, that may sound like a gross statement, but I think that when we look back at the history in this country of lynchings, well, they didn't discriminate against women. They hung women as well as men in this country. And I hate to say this also, but I'm going to say it, is the Ku Klux Klan is a Christian organization. They wouldn't think of starting a Klan rally without singing a song like the Old Rugged Cross, who I'll never forget, and starting out with a prayer. Thank God that they were born white. I mean, it's just it's funny. You can take a positive, take something that's really critically important, and then paint it racist, and that's what's happening. And the sexism, and the other thing, when just listening to you talk about what happened at Curtis' funeral, and I wasn't clear about what was happening because I spoke there. I spoke at my brother's funeral also. But in doing my research, I found that women of color were not allowed to speak at the March on Washington.
Oh,
That
wow.
the March on Washington, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who had a dream, A. Philip Randolph, uh, over 250,000 people were there. Uh, Gloria Richardson, who passed last year, my mentor, someone who I love,
I lost you. Rose.
the founders of the Black movement, were not given an order. If you remember, all the speakers were basically men, and we
Yes,
and we as men have to be men and stand up against sexism.
that's right.
Stand up against sexism. Don't let your ego get in the way, brother. They told you that you have to be the head of the household. What happened to partnership? What happened to the person who has the skills to do the task? And she can do it better than you. She knows more than you. But you the man, macho man. So you just go ahead and screw it up. Don't be a fool. Don't be a sexist. Do the right thing, and give your daughters an example to follow to reach their potential. Love them, support them, lift them up, and don't ever let anybody put them down. Don't ever let them do that. That's important. I'm proud of the fact that I have three daughters who are professionals and who are leaders in their own capacity, and don't let nobody turn them around or stop them from doing what they do.
you
Proud of
know,
them. Go
you know,
ahead.
at that same service, I was sitting next to my sister, Tara, and my nephew, Jordan, your grandson, and we all have dreadlocks. And
That's right.
yep,
That's right.
Ari probably would have them if he could. Haha, jab, jab, bro. Um, but we all have dreadlocks. And one of the first things the preacher said, he looked at us in the front row, mourning our uncle, and he said, some of y'all look like you ain't never been in church before.
Yeah.
Right? That brings me back to Hair Story, because in our own community, we discriminate against each other.
He had some negative things to say about myself, Curtis, and Sam, the three brothers too. Said we were all thugs, hoodlums. I don't know if you heard that, but Johnson, he said that. He
Wow.
made that.
Yeah, and that's never been the case.
No.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because, I know a lot of faithful Christians listen to this station, and
Yes.
so you know what a spirit of discernment is. When my little boy walked into the church, he could not go very far. He stopped. He said, "There's something not good in here," and he was not talking about the body, the funeral. He's like, there is something not good in here. I have to leave. I can't be here. And he about had a meltdown until my husband took him out. And I just feel like maybe he saw something because I just hate that that sense of discrimination and that kind of ignorance coming on the pulpit. Like, that's the kind of stuff that Aunt Pete wanted to fight. Like, it didn't matter. She she was raised in that tradition too, but she knew what God said to her, and it wasn't coming from a place of discrimination or sexism. And so she was a leader because that's what she was called to do. So that's something else that I really appreciate about her. I talked to her a long time after that funeral, and she about hearing God for yourself. So that's why that was in my poem about her.
Well, the Hopkins women are very strong women. She's not the only minister in that family. Uh,
Right.
Edna Hopkins Brazier is a doctor of the theology, a doctor of theology, and she preaches all the time. There's Betty, uh, who is
Hey,
the oldest of the center, who is a very very religious and strong and a leader, but very very active in politics and in political things. So they're strong women, and they came from two strong parents, Georgia Hopkins and James Hopkins. Uh, Pete, uh, I call her Pete. I mean, it's hard for me to call anything else. I mean, we grew up together, and she grew up in my living room. When she was a child, she would always come over and she sang with us. One thing we did together was sing together, and we protected together, and we stayed together, and we just held on together. But I'm glad that you continue to lift up uh, what is right and what is real, and refuse to accept the racism that comes. And in your sign, in your home there's a sign that says Black Lives Matter.
that's right.
And you brought two young men into the world, my grandsons, and you're teaching them to be strong young men, but also you teach them to respect women and to love women and to love each other.
Yeah, my Black Lives Matter um caused a little conflict in the neighborhood when I first put it up back in 2020. And so my neighbor started writing on Facebook about, like, saying like really bad names about me and lies about me and stuff. And she thinks she's gonna get me upset with that stupid Black Lives Matter sign. He was so mad about it. So my new book, Count Each Breath, which will be out in September, I have a poem about the white supremacist out my window. and another one called Radicalized, because what happens to people? How do they they get so caught up in conspiracy theories on social media, and then they get sucked into this rabbit hole, and when they come back out, they're a different person. They are radicalized, and the book ends on that note, that we should be careful about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's absolutely wonderful. What are some of the other books that you published, Maria? Over
Um,
several others you put
yeah,
out there.
first published Windows to the Soul when I was a student at Shippensburg University. It's out of print now, but it had a beautiful cover done by Christine Johnson. And Christine is also, Christine and her sister Nadine are doing the art for Hair Story as
Oh,
uh,
wonderful.
setting. Yeah, so it's great to come together again with my sister artists. And then my second book was Rising Waters, and Rising Waters. It was when I was younger. It was wow. It's been quite a few years now since I put that one out.
I know. Yes, that's true.
And then
But time moves forward, and
it
you
does.
continue to reproduce.
And
You continue to set an.
in 2013, I released Talking White, and it is available on Amazon now, and in your maybe in your local stores as well. And Talking White was really, the poems are really thinking about how Blacks discriminate against each other at times. Like, I don't know you, you're not one of us because of the way you talk, or you're not one of us because you're from this social status or something like that. And that really got to me. And so I wrote a lot about that situation in that book. So, and that came out in 2013. And then, so I've had so much time in between books, and that's mostly because of working and parenting and all of that. So right now, I'm glad to have some time to kind of concentrate on my writing. Um, so that I can produce more in the next few months and really get behind Hair Story and promoting my current book. Looks like I lost Dad for a minute. Let's see here. Well,
we see you, Rich, but we can't hear you, sir.
well, maybe the internet dropped or something.
Yeah, the internet may have dropped. You may want to log out, unfortunately, and log back in. We'll have your daughter read another piece of poetry if that's okay with you.
Sure. Pull something up here. Okay. So another thing that has come up in my Hair Story interviews is about health. Some of the things that we do to our hair can really damage it and cause diseases and things like that. And one thing that happens a lot with autoimmune diseases and other health concerns, even COVID-19, is alopecia. So this poem, alopecia is also exacerbated by stress. And so that's what you'll see in this poem. This reflects the story of one of the ladies I spoke with, alopecia. The itch. It began with a boy. That itch down deep enough to scratch a brain squeezed under pressure. The labyrinth's path spiraling outward from the center of my crown as my self-love spiraled down. I had to rip his lies out of my mind, claw him away from my scalp till the sun lifted my head from blood-spotted pillows. That itch, the pain, it began with a boy that I needed to please. My shell became a weapon that I turned in on me. The pressure unfolded into fire, that indescribable burn. You know, your crown can't handle another 8-week cycle of lie. We call it permanent because the scars last so long. That itch, that burn, it began with a boy. No energy emanates from a tarnished crown. The inner queen ripped away, squeezed between the knees of a crooked system that capitalizes on addiction to that chair where queens are scalped back to brainstem. Pressure to conform is tight in my throat. The dollars, the hours wasted, and the result is in the sink and on the floor and in my hands and on blood-spotted pillows. That itch, the burn, the scars, the tarnished crown, and it all began with a boy. So that was alopecia. Alopecia impacts us in many ways. It can come suddenly. It doesn't matter the age. That was stress, but it can also come on from illness like lupus, Sjogren's, or even COVID-19. I have another one, and this dedication is going out to Kimmy, who used to keep my classroom clean. It's called Processed. My end of day task is to ferociously focus on forming tomorrow's lesson plans. Me, my planner, my pen, when the janitorial staff steps in, typically serving quietly, sneaking out what each child left behind. Black servants to white professionals, they see all, but say nothing to teachers, to admin. But here go Kim, who sees me as the only brown face in white space. She reaches out to see if I remember who I am, and step by step, can by full can, word by word, story to familiar her story, we connect like links in a chain. Miss Kim says, child, in my younger days, my hair was thick and slick, slipped easy through combs and picks, hung down, it'd swing like hips on music. Wish I'd gone through that process like, you know, them locks is nice. She pours out my office trash with arms like Sojourner. What a woman. Ain't that the truth? Chimes a thick blonde wig sister behind a broom. I ain't even got enough left for a protective style, she shares. Child, Kim says again, my hair has been stretched on the rack, been beaten and burnt, bled out and bent over. My process produced permanent scars. Half of it done run off and the other half stay hid. Yeah, Big Broom Mama says, that little bit stay under her wig. It's like my hair and my scalp was in a bad relationship. Show you right. God dressed my head in perfect coils, and for nearly 40 years, they was abused by the creams and the color, the heat and the dyes, all the lies. My lungs are messing with me today. So, Miss Kim says, how you grow them locks like that? All walls fall. When sisterhood is glue enough to connect a trash bag, a broom, and a pen. And I say, child, it's a process. So that is process, which is what we often call our hair. It is over processed because we need to fit into what this system, how this system says we need to fit. So it looks like, is brother Chris, you listening?
Yes, ma'am. Very well done. Very well said. We're still trying to work out your father's sound issue. We're trying to have him call the station with his telephone and keep his image on there. And then we can patch his voice in till we can find out a permanent solution for troubleshooting what's going on over at the house there.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Well, I guess I'll just share more poems then.
Please.
Okay. I got my computer up here with all the poetry on there. Here we go. Come on. Of course, everything's not. It's at our fingertips, but then we don't know where to find things. Programs, yes. So reclaimartistcollective.org is where you can go to find out more about my plays and what we're doing. We're working on a lot. We have Hair Story coming up. In the future, we'd like to do one about parents of color and with the autistic children and the challenges we face. And actually, all of us face these kinds of challenges of trying to get services for our kids in a system that's set up to get you to give up when it comes to finding those getting those services. So that's another one on my mind. It's called Loving in Black and White. So I'm thinking 2025 for that one. So now here is a poem from Reclaiming My Time, which was the one that I did based on the civil rights era. Mom, don't it make you tired? Spent, drained, lied on, lied to, lied about. We're dismissed, distorted, viewed through a broken prism, a circus mirror. Mom, does your bucket feel empty? Kicked over, too much poured out? Is there a hole in it? Decades of tiny cracks, bleeding blood and energy. Mom, do you ever feel tired? Sick deep down, too sick to rage or run. They killed 2 last week. One girl saw it all from the back seat. Our protest erased by a lone gunman. Now we all carry the burden of his PTSD. Mom, how can they question the right we have to breathe? To breathe. Mom, you ever been this tired? And then Mom laughs. Ha, honey, you don't know tired. Tired is my friend. My long road, my right here, my round the bend. Girl, you don't know tired. You just getting a glimpse. They told you the war was over and you chose to believe them? No, you don't know tired. I'm on a first name basis with this demon. It always been lying in wait, hoping you'll be too worn out to fight the hate. Gone. Design those picket signs. Marching is for young folks. Don't give in. Don't give up. Don't give in. And for God's sake, honey, stay woke. So I really enjoy that. And as I'm reading it, I hear the voice of Alethea Hines, who is an amazing actor and played the mom role in Reclaiming My Time. We also did in 2020, we did a Zoom play, RMT 2.0, which was Reclaiming My Time, but in a shorter version that worked on Zoom. And we really enjoyed that as well. This next poem, God keep my airway open, which, brings me back to count each breath. Now, you know why it's titled that way. I have to count each breath. Hope I have enough. But This next poem is called The Spelling Bee, and it is my poetic translation of the story told to me by Marion Dornell, who wrote Unicorn in Captivity. She was a great poet, a historian, and I loved her dearly. She passed in 2019 from pancreatic cancer. This was her story in a certain Harrisburg elementary school. Racism. 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 The best colored in the class can't be the best in the class. It shades their idea of the truth. Supremacy stands on weak legs in the presence of a little girl who can spell it correctly. Supremacy. 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 The glint of the sun off my spelling bee trophy hurt their eyes, shook the ground under their feet. The white kids must have been lazy that day. The colored kid must have cheated. No way she won. No way she was diligent in her practice. This is a do-over, not discrimination. 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 My parents didn't think we'd have to have this talk yet. Second grade is too soon when you live above the Mason-Dixon. Too soon to talk about mistakes adults make when feeling their old world eclipsed by brown faces. Too soon to talk about legalized hate, lies, segregation. 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 A little girl's brilliance was big enough to crush their stereotypes. It took a long time for me to come back here to this river town where they tried to drown my voice.
Great job, Maria. Your father's still having sound difficulties, but we have 5 more minutes left in the program. Why don't we give one more special shout out of celebration and loving memory of Apostle Janette. And then could you tell us a little bit about your father's business, African Paradise, if you mind, in closing? We have 4 minutes, ma'am, please.
Sure. So as we said, Janette-Hopkins branch, my cousin, she was brilliant, a well-educated woman. She, in Harrisburg, I remember her singing and being a guest preacher at, and here's her picture, being a guest preacher at Bethel AME in Carlisle, and just being just a very, very dynamic, brilliant woman. And she was always open-minded and always received us with kindness and love. So I'm thankful to Dad for having me in here to celebrate her and to share my poetry with you. You can buy my poetry books at his stand, African Paradise, and I think you might be coming on. Oh yeah, we got some great pictures here. African Paradise over at the Lebanon Valley Farmers Market. It's really cool. You can get oils, you can get African clothes. You can pick up my book, Talking White. You can get wonderful sculptures and paintings directly from artists in Senegal. Wonderful things. So definitely visit him out there. He's there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And you should definitely go there and check it out. Also, I want to invite you to see my book release. Party will be at Open Stage of Harrisburg at in their lounge, September 23rd. You'll have to get tickets. Check out Wild Ink Publishing for more information. Wild Ink Publishing. Do I have?
You still have 2 minutes if you had anything else in closing you wanted to share.
Okay, 2 minutes. Here's one that will make you think. This one's dedicated to my mother. It's called The Trunk. I had to leave New Orleans in the trunk of a car after days of poking at Jim Crow. They called us zip dandy agitators, Yankees, reported our checkerboard groove fest in the hotel, blacks and whites harmonizing like piano keys. It was Fat Tuesday in the Big Easy, but there's nothing easy about civil rights work, so I had to leave New Orleans in the trunk of a car. My high-ho silver moment wasn't like the ones on TV. The Impala pulled up and legs swung over wrought iron balcony, thrown like Mardi Gras beads into a blanket of blackness, the growl of the engine, the bump, bump, boom of the rocky ground, the hollow hum of the radio ran over the hoot and holler of Klan on our tails. I was knocked around but safe, tucked away in the Impala's arms. I had to leave New Orleans in the trunk of a car because my last ride left its footprint on my psyche. I was the passenger, my white friend driving. The fuzz pulled him out the window, beat him bloody, called him names and kicked him, pulled our pixie-haired friend from the back, beat her just for looking like a boy, made me watch and learn why a Negro should never take a front seat. I had to leave New Orleans in the trunk of a car. And that's dedicated to my mother. That is a story given to me by Mary James. So check me out on Facebook, Instagram, now even TikTok. I'm learning that. And Dad, thank you for having me. I love you. I'm sorry we lost your feed there, but thanks for having me.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Richard James Show. Our African and our African American programs are set up to educate you on what's going on in this world. We thank you for taking out the time to listen. Let us hear from you sometime also. So this is your neighbor and your friend signing off. Until I see you again next week and hear from you again next week. So long. God bless.